The Vikings crossing Scandinavia, going into the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and then Greenland. But why did the Vikings mysteriously leave Greenland? We now may finally know the reason. For the better part of 4 centuries, Greenland's southern coast defined the westmost edge of Viking occupation. Seduced by visions of verdant hills and fertile ground, in the late 10th century, waves of Norse migrants set sail in hopes of an easier life abroad, and at its peak, the colony population numbered in the thousands, spread out across 3 major settlements. And then it ended, and no word of hardship, no record of struggle. By the middle of the 15th century, the Norse experiment in Greenland was a bust. New research suggests we might have had it all wrong about the prime cause of the collapse, shifting the focus from extreme cold to extreme drought. Historians speculate that the cause of the colony's collapse could have been anything from sudden violence at the hands of an invading culture to a gradual decline in birth rates to hardship brought on by a changing climate. There's little doubt that a variety of factors were at work, but the consensus has tended to see one as critical, an enduring drop in temperatures referred to as the Little Ice Age. It's an idea the team of researchers from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and University at Buffalo in the US has now found wanting in evidence and pointing instead to records of temperature and precipitation rainfall buried in the sediment of a site near the remains of an ancient Norse farmstead. The team suggests it was a stark decline in summer rains that made living in Greenland increasingly unviable. So it was a drought. The very name Greenland itself is a misnomer, intentionally crafted by the founder of the island's Viking colonies, Eric the Red, Thorvaldsen, as propaganda to draw willing settlers in from afar. And still, those who did come quickly grew accustomed to the long, icy winters and extreme remoteness, finding riches in the form of walrus skins and ivory to trade with those back home for dried fruits and timber. Survival depended on inherited knowledge of raising meager crops and livestock under extreme conditions while supplementing it with food from the ocean. As difficult as a Viking life in Greenland sounds, from its establishment in 985 AD, the population prospered and expanded over the course of several generations before disappearing from historical records sometime in the mid-1400s. The period of settlement also happens to be a period in history that spans the start of regional cooling in the North Atlantic. It led some historians to suspect the colony establishment was only possible thanks to the relative warmth before the cooling period began. But evidence for this has been rather tenuous, based on ice core data from elevated sites more than 1,000 kilometers or 620 miles away from the nearest Viking colony of the time. And what's more, there's good reason to think life was just as cold around the 10th century as it was in the 15th century. The UMass Amsterdam geoscientist Raymond Bradley says, before this study, there was no data from the actual site of the Viking settlements, and that's a problem. Bradley's team instead went to the site of one of the largest farms in the colony's eastern settlement and spent 3 years digging samples of material from a nearby lake bed. This muck sandwich of sediment, bacteria, and decaying plant matter told a 2,000-year-long story of stable temperatures and increasingly dwindling rainfall. So the rainfall was beginning to become a drought. The lead author and geoscientist Boyang Zhao, also from UMass Amsterdam, Amherst, and now at Brown University, said, what we discovered is that while the temperature barely changed over the course of the Norse settlement of southern Greenland, it became steadily drier over time. When life is already teetering on the brink, every year of drought is one more nail in the coffin. Potential breakdowns in social ties, a tendency to have smaller families, and even a drop in the value of walrus tusks with growing trade for elephant ivory from elsewhere may have made tough times of drought that much harder to endure. And social collapse is a complicated business after all. But when you're living in a land that is not as green as promised, Even the hardiest Vikings would find years of drought just too much to bear. This was published in Science Advances, and it's on Science Alert by Mike McRae. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.